almost half a century ago, and Boleyn was held in the Tower of London, awaiting her fate. While 487 years have passed, it seems some uplifting past times have not changed since the Tudor era, as new research has revealed that she sought to cheer herself up by indulging in retail therapy. At the time, Anne was facing charges of treason, adultery, and incest, with her execution on the cards following her failure to produce Henry VIII's male heir. During the inevitably agonizing wait, Anne took refuge by buying clothes for her then 2-year-old daughter, Elizabeth I. Leading Tudor historian, Dr. Tracy Borman, believes that the significance of the very last thing Anne did before her beheading, which took place on May 19, 1536, has been overlooked until now. Records, held at the National Archives, show that she purchased an orange velvet gown, a yellow satin kirtle, which is similar to a gown or outer petticoat, and a black muffler, typically worn around the neck or scarf. The documents also show that Anne had organized for transportation for her toddler's new caps. Dr. Borman is the Joint Chief Curator for the Historic Royal Palaces, which manages the likes of the Tower of London, where Anne was executed and buried almost 5 centuries ago. She told The Telegraph in April, during the bleak early months of 1536, with the king barely speaking to her and the vultures at court circling over their prey, almost the last thing Anne did on earth was to order clothes for her daughter. Dr. Borman added, "There is something very relatable, and human, about the fact that while everything around her was falling apart, Anne took refuge in a bit of retail therapy." The research features in Dr. Borman's new book, Anne Boleyn and Elizabeth I, The Mother and Daughter Who Changed History, which looks at the relationship between two of history's most famous women, whose stories have seldom been told together. Dr. Borman explained that Henry sought to remove all traces of his late wife, whose reputation was sullied. She continued, "Their stories have never been told together. There's a good reason for that, because Elizabeth was less than 3 when Anne was executed. The general assumption has been that Anne could have had little impact on her daughter, and in fact, Elizabeth reinforced that because, in her speeches, she talks about her father much more and she hardly ever mentions her mother. The truth is very different, I found." Don't miss Finding Love in England's Most Famous Prison, Megan Clausen's novel, Insight, Henry VIII suffered great grief over Anne Boleyn's death. Analysis, mystery behind Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn's 2 weddings. Report, following her arrest on May 2, the Queen spent her final 17 days alive inside the Tower of London, the very place she had lodged triumphantly while awaiting her coronation 3 years earlier. Anne, who is thought to have been just 35 years old at the time, was found guilty of high treason by a jury of her peers in what is often regarded as a sham trial just 4 days before her death on May 15, 1536. She was accused of having sexual relationships with several men, including her brother George Boleyn, which she was alleged to have done as a result of her frail and carnal appetites, according to the indictments. Not only this, but it was alleged that the Queen had conspired with these courtiers to murder her husband and king. Most historians agree that Anne was not guilty and was framed, either by Henry, who had his sights set on a new wife, and most importantly someone who could give him a male heir, or by his servant, Thomas Cromwell. It is said Henry granted his wife a small mercy as he had her die at the hand of a skilled swordsman as opposed to an executioner with an axe. The night before her beheading, according to the Constable of the Tower of London, she had joked that the executioner was very good, adding that she had a little neck while laughing and putting her hands around it. Anne protested her innocence right until the very end, when she was taken to Tower Green and her head was placed upon the block. Dr. Borman's book, Anne Boleyn and Elizabeth I, The Mother and Daughter Who Changed History, published in May, is available here.